to you also. So welcome everybody to Perfectly Here Connection Hour. I am your host, Dr. Manija Mutagi, the founder of Perfectly Here, 3D Life Intelligence and Life Optimization Methodologies. And today we have a really special guest, Olivia Tetter, a design-driven innovator, human potentialist, and systems entrepreneur. Olivia is the head of client innovation at Second Harvest of Silicon Valley, which is an organization catering to the needs of the homeless. And Olivia will actually help us to reframe this terminology of homelessness, but we are very happy to have her here with us to educate us on how to be with the homeless as a society, how to manage our lives, around that also. And before this, I'd like to also introduce my co-host, Matthew Law. Matthew is the head of labor excellence at Maersk. He's in the process of completing his master's degree in mindfulness at Lesley University. He's also a fellow alumni from the NYU Inner MBA, which both Olivia and myself are part of, alumni. And so the structure is that Olivia will give a presentation, leaving a few minutes for Q&A, and then we'll put you in dyads or triads, and we'll stop around 11 a.m. Our time, PST, and we'll go over for a few minutes for just those who'd like to stay and a little bit longer to continue the topic. And so we can, many of you are first timers or repeat. I'd like to perhaps begin by putting everybody in the breakout rooms, so that you can just introduce yourself a little bit and talk about this topic of homelessness. How are you impacted? What is your relationship to this? What do you think of what makes a person homeless, or what is our responsibility as a society? Do we have a responsibility or not? What are your feelings around it? What are your experiences around it? And then so that gives us, when you come back, we will just talk a little bit about that and gives a little bit more context for the presentation, which I will, when we come back, I will hand the session off to Matthew to also. Welcome, Matthew. Thank you for putting this together, inviting Olivia. And this is a very sensitive and timely topic for all of us. If you'd like to say anything in a few words and invite Olivia, or with people, you take over.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I mean, I'm very happy to have Olivia. It's a great honor. I think it's a very important topic, and we're going to record this, and we're going to also publish it and push it out as well. I think that this is also a topic that should be something that's discussed all year round. I know it's the holiday season, but it's something that's very important all year round. And Manoj, just before we went into the breakouts, I was just thinking a little bit about my own experiences, and I've been very fortunate to travel a lot in the world, many countries. And you made me think a lot about how in every single country I've ever been to, there's homeless people. Mm-hmm. And there's different ways in which culturally they also look after them, which is also very, very interesting as well. I know one of the countries I'm very close to is Thailand, mm-hmm. and Thailand have a very strong sense of community, and you often see the way they look after the different types of homeless people there. Even in a country like Norway or Denmark, the few times I visited there, they have their own customs and unique ways to look after the homeless too. In Denmark, it's quite funny because whenever you drink a water bottle or a soda can, the custom is to leave it next to the bin in a public place, because it's collected by the homeless and they go and collect money with that. So, and then also very interesting in places like Africa, probably one of the really very interesting places being in Angola or even Nigeria, and how in even those cultures there's different ways in which they look after and care for the homeless as well. And so with that reflection from my side, maybe unless anybody else has something else they want to offer from the breakout rooms, raise your hand, please. I think we can go to Olivia's presentation and then come back and talk about that. But that's certainly my experience over different years of traveling around the world and seeing how different cultures and groups in society help and support community and the homeless.
Yeah, thank you so much, Matthew. That's very useful for us to think that there are people all around the world experiencing this, and how do we have, what are our customs, what are our traditions, what are our mindsets, how do we improve that? So we are hoping that Olivia and Sam, I hear that Sam is also from the same organization, working with Olivia on same research projects, and so we're very fortunate to have both of them today, that they can share their wisdom, their findings, their knowledge in this area. Is there anybody who has any questions or comments from your breakout room? That's something that stood out to you that you'd love to share before we go to the presentation? Okay.
Is Mariam, are you trying to say something, Mariam? You're on mute.
Mariam, you are muted if you like to.
Oh, okay. Yes, I have a question.
Go ahead.
I want to know if, like, people saying they get help, but they don't want to get help because they like to stay on the street and live like that. They rejected the help from government. Is that true or not?
Very good question. Excellent. Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's a great question. And it sort of came up a little bit in our breakout. Eric was speaking about a program that does good work in Los Angeles area. So I think it's pretty rare that someone would want to stay unhoused. If they do, it's because the constraints that are put on them in order to get secure housing are outside of the realm of possibility for them in their current moment. So, for example, we were speaking about the very strict rules that this program in LA has, right? So you can't have any alcohol, which is understandable. They don't want people to be drunk in their program, so that's understandable. But in fact, if you're an alcoholic, you could die if you give up alcohol cold turkey. You likely will die if you're a full-on alcoholic. So you need to have a program that helps you monitor your alcohol level. You withdraw slowly. So and I've heard from people in the community that most people become drug addicted or have their mental health issues arise after they become unhoused. It's not because they have these issues that they become unhoused, but they become unhoused due to circumstances, and then they experience these mental health crises or drug addiction because it's so hard to live on the street. That's quite common. So I think the nature of the problem is so multifaceted. There's so many reasons and so many challenges that people face out on the street, but most people will accept help if they were given help. And if they were given help in the form of a safe environment in which to live, the shelters, for example, are not safe. Over 90% of the women who are unhoused in San Francisco have experienced sexual assault in the system. When they try to get some shelter, they're sexually assaulted.
Yeah.
Right? So how is that a safe place? Right? So we have to be careful assuming that we understand what safety means for someone, what makes them feel safe. And it's both about physical safety and emotional, psychological safety. And we want to create an environment in which people feel safe in order to accept shelter. So it's not as straightforward as one would think. Very few people would refuse a safe, warm place to live where they have some privacy, where they have some autonomy, and where they have some services so that they can, afford to eat, that they can create relationships, that there's a sense of community that they have access to. So, the human needs are not just about shelter, obviously, but without shelter, a lot of those other things go away. And the problems compound: mental health problems, addiction problems, violence. All of these things are much more likely to happen if you're unhoused. And then, of course, that creates trauma. So if you likely have, most people experience trauma in their life at some point. So likely, if you've experienced some trauma beforehand, you will most definitely experience trauma living on the streets, right? It is, in fact, traumatic to be unhoused. And so that creates a whole nother set of nuanced issues. And so the primary, I'm really glad that Sam is able to join today. Sam and I are on the client innovation team, and our task at Second Harvest is to create a better experience for clients, for people coming to get food from us. We should state that a very tiny percentage of the people that we serve are unhoused. The vast majority of people are living have shelter. Most have jobs, but we work in Silicon Valley, which is one of the most expensive places in the world to live. And so low-income housing, subsidized housing, would be like $2,800 a month for a tiny little place. And that's if you get government support, right? And so you can imagine how easy it is to become unhoused. One medical incident, someone gets sick in your family, that could cause it. Obviously losing a job, but many unhoused folks have jobs, more than one job. And so we did some interviewing of clients and discovered that 60% of our clients have $200 or less in the bank. So you can imagine that most of our clients, and we serve 470, 480,000 people a month right now. You can just absorb what that means. Or, almost 500,000 people a month come to get food from us every month. And most of those people are on the verge of homelessness. They're one paycheck away, one medical accident, one broken car so that you can't get to your job, so then you lose your job, those kinds of things. And one thing I will really emphasize, and I'm going to show you just some illustrations of some people we met in our research.
Olivia, I've given you authority to share. If you like to do your presentation,
okay, yeah. Why don't we do that? Why don't I move into the slides? That's a good idea.
Go for it.
Okay. Let's see. Share screen. Okay. Can you see that? Oops. I don't mean to do that. Is that visible? Okay.
Yes.
So one of the primary things we teach, Sam and I on our team, is compassion. So we think of compassion as a tool for customer service. Really, we teach about customer service, creating the best possible experience for people to come get food. But really what we're teaching is compassion training. And so I have just a few slides I was going to share with you all. But before we actually dive in, let's just spend 2 minutes in reflection and just be quiet and land in this space together and reflect on any experience we've ever had with someone. Maybe you can think of one person in particular, one encounter in particular. Just reflect for a moment on your own experience of being next to someone in communication or not who is unhoused. And I'm going to set a timer and just breathe and feel. We'll come back together in the group in a moment, but as you're thinking, as you're feeling here, just notice the sensations in your body. What does it feel like? Where do you notice it in your body? Let's breathe into that and observe yourself. It's important for us to manage our own nervous systems around these experiences. Just to observe what it feels like to be in this kind of often uncomfortable experience of being around unhoused people. All right, maybe take one big deep breath and release it out slowly. Maybe sigh it out if it feels good. So I'm going to share a few images of people that we met along the way. Just as a way of showing the connections we made in our journey, and reminding ourselves that this is a hour of connection. So we're connecting to each other around this subject, and also opening up the possibility of connection with our unhoused neighbors and people we encounter who are experiencing homelessness and who are human beings, every single one of them, with their own story and their own way of being in the world. So this is a gentleman we met who, he was a vet. He was very smart, very well possessed, wore his army clothes. Sam and I had a nice long conversation with him. One time he walked from San Francisco to Mountain View. It took him 2.5 days to get food because he heard that there was food available in Mountain View. And he ended up staying in Mountain View area, and he was about to get rehoused. So he was about to get some housing as a vet. This is a woman we met who lives at a large encampment. Actually, I think that encampment has been cleared out. I haven't heard an update on that, Sam. You and I should check into what's happening. They were planning on vacating and when they do sweeps, the police and the counties and the transit district and the water district in our area will do what they call sweeps. And that's basically just pushing everyone out. They often cut their tents, steal their possessions, and give them nowhere else to go. And that's called a sweep. Happens regularly, happens all the time in San Francisco. It's in my opinion, very misguided way of managing the situation, and very, very cruel, extremely cruel, taking away their warmth, their sleeping bags, their tents. So the area that these people, that this woman and there had been, Sam, I forget, how many people had been at this, over 400 people at this encampment originally?
I think it started out at 400, and then there might have been an initial sweep that stopped, and then there was 200, I think, when we had gone.
Yeah. So yeah, just share any insights and observations as we go through these, Sam, as well. This woman helps feed other people. There was a very strong sense of community in this encampment. Nobody was going hungry, which was amazing. And then, we know because people would come and bring food to this encampment. It was a very well-known encampment. And so individuals, organizations would come and then they would share food. They would have campfires, and some people had vehicles with a gas stove in it so they could cook sometimes. Big personality. She has 2 dogs, and really fun, community-oriented woman. This gentleman is an immigrant. I don't know if he was documented in the US or not. He worked 2 jobs that are paid, and also works a 3rd job giving out food to other people. So he volunteers to give out food. He lives in a camper, is very gregarious and social, and kind-hearted human. This is who I was thinking of when I meditated just a moment ago on a connection with someone. We met this gentleman, at a day program that serves mostly unhoused folks, but all kinds of different people who need support. They have a free meal, two free meals a day, breakfast and lunch. It's a cafe, very warm, friendly, beautiful environment. And they have all kinds of workshops and classes. This person was recently, he had been incarcerated up until a few months before, and very soft-spoken, very clean cut. And he was feeling really, really lonely and isolated. He said he had, he felt such a sense of community when he was incarcerated, and he's living in his car now. And when you've been convicted of a crime, it prevents you from getting a lot of different jobs. But this person was clearly not a violent person, very sweet-natured, and trying to get back on his feet and feeling really lonely in living in his car. This person was living, so this state of California gave out a lot of money recently over COVID to buy, oh, Eric, I'm sorry, it's hard for you. A lot of this is visual. Please let me know if there's anything you want me to explain more about the visuals. I should have said that earlier, Eric, so just let me know. There's a woman, she was probably in her early 70s. She and her family came to the US to perform with her traveling circus, her family traveling circus. And they had been brought over by the, not the Lions Club, the Rotary Club. But then COVID happened and their money dried up and they were stranded here in the US. Then her husband got very ill, and they were unhoused while he was ill, and he passed away. And now she was in a shelter that is a really great program that our mayor funded, where counties can buy old motels and convert them into shelters for housing. So she had her own unit, and she has 2 small dogs, and they provide 2 meals a day and lots of services. And so that's a really wonderful program. And then they help you to get reestablished in the community. So this is a woman who has 4 kids. She appeared to me to be suffering from pretty severe depression. She works night shift so that she can be available to take her kids to school. When I asked her about the kinds of food she eats, she talked about what she likes to eat, but then one of her children was on her lap, and she said, "Well, we eat in the car." And I was like, "Oh, okay, that's good. What you have plenty of food?" And she's like, "Yeah, because we go to fast food." So the whole family eats only fast food, which of course is not the healthiest food, but you can get a lot of calories for not a lot of money. And so this was the way she could move forward, working a full-time job, raising 4 kids, living in a shelter. She didn't have time or space to cook. And so that was her way of taking care of her family. This was someone who had worked as a laborer his whole life. He was probably in his 70s. We discovered through him that while people come to this particular cafe, recovery cafe, for 5 days a week, on the weekends they have no food, unless there are some specialty programs that some people could get food, but most people who came to the recovery cafe had no food on the weekends. So we were able to find a way to get food to them on the weekends, that they would get a non-perishable bag of food, that they could have something for the weekends, because this gentleman had been hospitalized for 3 weeks because he had diabetes and he couldn't manage his sugar levels because he didn't have any food. Very smiley, super appreciative, very humble, grateful for his life and for the opportunity to connect. That was one thing that was very powerful through all of our meetings with people, is how grateful they were to be seen and heard and listened to, that their opinions mattered, that their life story mattered. It appeared very evident that not that many people take the time to have a conversation. And so that's a powerful takeaway for me, and I think for our team, was that connecting and listening was very, very healing. And that is also, critically important to the mental, physical, emotional well-being of people who are experiencing homelessness. This was a woman who had a teenage daughter who was quite disabled, and she had been earning over $300,000 a year in her professional career, but she was in a violent relationship and had to flee the relationship, and then became unhoused and had to manage a teenage daughter living in her car. So she, lost her job, and she was in a temporary shelter. Last time I connected with her, she had found a job, and she had certain constraints on, she had to be able to be available for her daughter in the afternoons after school. And so fortunately, she was able to find a job, and things were looking good for her. I know we were asked earlier about people who may not want services or to become rehoused. This gentleman is a Native American, very spiritual person, very calm, and he built a really nice space for himself, kind of a camp that was behind the high school in this very, very wealthy area in the Bay Area called Los Gatos, extremely wealthy area. And he had a system where he carried water. He knew where to get water, and he had a stove, a cook stove, and he got food one day a week, groceries, and one day a week cooked food. And he had a system laid out. And I asked him, would you want to be rehoused? And he didn't think he did, partly because he's able to live this life that's free. And there's the place that we interviewed him also provides showers once a week. And so he was there for the shower. And the person that was running that said, she was always telling him, why don't you volunteer? Why don't you do something with your life? And I thought it troubled me, because there's this idea that there's a certain way to live. When this person is living very light on the land, right? Truly an environmental, if you're thinking about, very little waste, living in harmony with nature. Couldn't that be enough, right? This idea, and I think that one of the dangers of working at a nonprofit like Sam and I do is this idea that we have the answers and that you should do things our way. And that applies to anyone. We don't have the answers. People know, and we've certainly discovered this with working with unhoused folks, that they know what they need for their own health. A lot of the service providers, we interviewed 22 different other nonprofit agencies, and a lot of them said, oh, they just eat crap. They don't care about healthy food. They don't know what's good for them. And that was not what we found at all. We interviewed 145 individuals. They knew what healthy food was. They knew how to take care of the health. They just didn't have access often to healthy food. It's really hard to get produce available for this population because they don't always have a place to cook it. They mostly, almost exclusively, do have no place to store it. And so how do they stay healthy? It's really a challenge. And, we discovered that some people can spend an entire day just trying to get their phone charged. That could be one whole day's work, is getting their phone charged. So you can imagine how hard you have to work to get food, and then healthy food on top of that. Basic survival needs are so challenging that we forget how many obstacles people face in order to just get by in the course of a day. So just thinking about how, what is it we can do? It's sort of it's a deeper issue and a complex issue. And as Matt alluded, right, it's different in different cultural settings. If it's safe, if you're physically safe and the other person, the unhoused person who you're interacting with, also feels safe, and I would encourage you to trust your intuition about this. If it's safe, it's great to connect with people, talk to them, hear their story, understand what their needs are. And largely their needs are probably money, right? People actually know what to do with their money. There's a lot of research about that. It does not cause harm to give people money. And that's likely the way that you can help them, but that might not be the way you can help them. Connecting, listening, hearing their story, asking their opinion. There's some research that's been done on compassion, and how if someone who normally just like steps over someone who's sleeping on the street, if you ask that person, what vegetable, what do you think the person who's lying on the street, so you ask the person who's walking over a homeless person, you ask them, what do you think that homeless person's favorite vegetable is? Already you shift something in their brain that you build compassion in them. All of a sudden, they're actually seeing a human being. A lot of times our feelings are so uncomfortable when you see someone who's unhoused that, oh, you know, God forbid that should happen to me, right? The fear that something like that can happen to you, which is a very legitimate, you know, human experience. I wouldn't want to be unhoused. I would not want to be sleeping on the street. So it's understandable that our brains talk to us about that. But the truth is that we all experience hardship. We all struggle at times. And so connecting to another human being as another human being with that shared understanding that we all struggle in some ways or another can build your own compassion and help you connect with people. So checking our own biases, the things we might know, oh, that person's probably a drug addict, and you know, and that whatever that means about them, right? Checking our judgments, checking our biases, and trying to relate to a human being, because that was somebody's baby, right? That was once a young child who had all kinds of possibilities and opportunities in front of them, but those opportunities shrank until now they find themselves in these circumstances. So we don't know what someone's experience is. And every single human being deserves to be treated with respect. Doing anything you can, thanking people for sharing their experience. These are all ways to demonstrate compassion in practice with regard to interacting with unhoused people. And then, so that's on a personal level, a one-on-one level. Obviously, if there are trusted organizations in your community who are doing work with unhoused folks that have earned the trust and are doing good work, it's a great thing to support those that you believe are having the right approach that is in alignment with your values. Supporting organizations that are helping this population, because to Matt's point, it exists all over the world. And it's likely existing in your own neighborhood. And so supporting the organizations that are doing the good work is a great way to help. And then, you know, fundamentally supporting causes, political causes, advocating for services that are going to help address the root cause of homelessness. You know, in the Bay Area where we live, it's really about the cost of living is astronomical. And you know, you would have to work, I forget what was the number, I think you'd have to work 200 hours a week at minimum wage in order to be able to afford an apartment in Silicon Valley, in our area, right? 200 hours a week is how many hours you'd have to work at minimum wage. So that's not humanly possible, actually. It's not humanly possible to work a minimum wage job and live in our area. So I'm an advocate for the housing. We're leaving the pressures on housing and building mixed income housing so that there is more opportunity for people. And for having, when you have low income housing, that it's only a percentage of what people, so like $2,800 is still not going to be manageable for someone who's minimum wage. So how can you make it like a percentage of their income so that they're able to stay housed once they get rehoused? So these are some of the things that we can do, and an ongoing basis, right? It's not a problem that exists only around the holidays. It exists year round. So those are the things I wanted to share. Connecting with individuals, supporting organizations, and addressing the root cause with advocacy. I like to quote Amma, a one-word solution for almost all the problem the world is facing today is compassion. So I'll stop there.
That's wonderful. Wow. I have two questions, but I want to give the floor to other people to make sure that before you leave, they ask their questions.
Yes, thank you. Any other questions people might have, or observations, experiences you've had?
So maybe I'll ask my question until did somebody, okay, go ahead, yeah.
How do they get drugs and use it?
So I remember when my bicycle was stolen for, I think actually the 7th time in San Francisco. The police told me that there's 4 currencies on the streets of San Francisco: money, sex, drugs, and bicycles. Those are ways you can earn money and in order to survive. And so there's underground network of suppliers who take advantage of people largely, and often intentionally help people to become drug addicted, because then they're going to need, if you're a drug dealer, that's a source of income for you, so you can encourage more unhoused folks to become drug addicted, and then they'll do what they have to do in order to feed the drug habit. So there's people who are preying on this population, taking advantage and making things much worse as well.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to, kudos, Olivia, amazing presentation. Thank you for humanizing, this for me. You really touch me. What I will say that I really took away mostly is that you said the humility that you portray as a woman, as a peer for me, is the fact that you said you don't know what anyone needs, and that like when the guy was living simply in the woods and using, like, that really touched me. Like, you noticed all the good, like you're noticing all the good and all the realities of these people. You're not, you're just flipping it, and that's so important. And you said something, just ask them about what kind of vegetable, to humanize these people, and that's just yeah. Thank you for your service and your work, and it's just so great to be here. You too, Sam. Thank you too, Sam.
Thanks, Barbara. Yes. Yeah, I mean, that's the temptation is to shut down our humanity a little bit, because the pain of thinking about somebody's life is so intense, right? It's so hard to think about the pain that someone might be experiencing living on the street, and the hardship that comes with that. And so there is a temptation to shut ourselves down. And we do also have to protect ourselves, right? We also do have to think about the traumas we've experienced and the ways that it can interact with these feelings. So we have to tend to ourselves and our own nervous systems and our own pain. And it's valuable to connect to the humanity of people. I never met one person who was unhoused that I couldn't connect in some way to appreciate their lived experience and their humanity. So bringing some humility to the work and to our interactions is really valuable. It's heart opening.
We live in a world of othering, and you're bringing sameness, and I think that's what all of us really need to do. I mean, you think of Jesus, that was love thy neighbor as thyself. Like, that's what a lot of these, even Buddhism, they're all like, there's no separation. What I do for another, I do for myself, and you did that today in this presentation. So yeah, thank you for that.
Beautiful, Barbara. Thank you for that share.
Thank you, Barbara. That's a very important point to make, the othering. That's how we do it so unconsciously. And I think I'll ask you my questions. I know you said you had to run right at the time at 11. I don't know if that's changed or not. But so I was wondering, so the police or the sheriff or whoever is clearing these folks off the street, are they not educated about what to do when they're doing this? Like, give them resources, maybe provide transportation, help them to go into a destination where they are safe, or at least get something, other than just go from here to where do I go, and remove their. So that's one question. The second was, since you have done research and you have so many people come, 400, 500,000 people a month, that is incredible. A large number of people who need help with food, at least. So have you done a research to see what percentage of these people are actually alcoholics and drug addicts. You know what I mean? Because we have this notion that if I give them the money, oh, they're just gonna go smoke it and drink it, and we're not helping them. Is there a good research to show that this is, what is the percentage? So.
Sure. So good questions. Okay, so the first question, it really depends on the municipality, the area, whether or not the police are allies in any way. But typically there are not enough resources, right? There are not enough beds. So it's not like there's some place to send them, right? It's not like, so San Mateo County, which is one of the 2 counties we work in, it's just south of San Francisco, they have a goal of ending what they call functional homelessness in this year, in the next year. And what they mean by that is that there is a bed for anyone who wants to have one. And so, but nobody, that's the only, I've never heard of any other county in the United States that has that so far. There may be some, but I've never heard of that, right? There are not enough places for people to go. And again, if it's a choice between risking it out on the street or risk, or alone, or maybe with a small community you create, or being in a shelter where you are at risk of violence, bed bugs, having your stuff stolen, like all these things that happen, is that a real choice? So even if they are given choices, the police are given resources, those choices are not necessarily better than being on the street. And so there are not good resources. So that said, some cities do a better job of being compassionate. I was at one where they knew there was going to be a flood of the river. And so instead of coming and helping to move people up land, they came and slashed their tents. They stole their sleeping bags. They took all their possessions. Now it's really hard if you get your wallet taken away from you to try and get your cards back, to try to get to City Hall, to get, so you set people way, way back. And that happened days before I was there to do a food distribution. That's in San Jose. So, and San Jose has, wait, what was it? 225 encampments. Is that the right number, Sam? 225 known homeless encampments in one city. So, the resource, and what we heard from in San Jose is that people just move from camp to camp. Okay, so you move this, now you move here, now you move here, and you just do a circuit, and then you end up back where you started. Maybe a year or 2 later, you're back where you were first kicked out, because there's no place to go. So that's the answer to the first question. So I just want to remind people that the 400, between almost 500,000 people, that's not unhoused folks. Most of our folks that come to get food for us have housing, have jobs. It's just too expensive to be able to afford to live here. And so that is they estimate that there's 12,000 unhoused people in our 2 counties, but we know that's an undercount, a dramatic undercount. Quite dramatic. So we don't actually know what the number is. Once a year, they do a count of everyone in across the country, a point in time count. And that's the number they came up with. But people are not trying to be found. And so they're trying not to be found, right? And so to do a count of people who are determined not to be found, you can't rely on those numbers. So, but they say 12,000, right? So. And how high is the percentage of drug abuse, alcohol abuse? I mean, even among the people, I don't have any data, but I overwhelmingly did not experience that most people were addicts. But I also do see the temptation to use being on the streets as a way to, be able to take a break from the pain of daily living. So, yeah, and as I said, we were told, again, we don't have data on this, that most people become addicts because they're on the streets, right? Not the other way around. They don't become homeless because they have an addiction problem. It's a response. And the same thing with mental health challenges. The majority of people who have a psychotic episode, we were told that most people experience that for the first time because of being unhoused, not because they don't become unhoused because of their episodes. Yeah, so I would not say that the drug addiction is the primary issue. It absolutely has to be addressed. So that when someone gets rehoused, you need to provide services to help them in a whole myriad of ways, right? They may not know how to cook. So even, and they may not have food for, I mean, they may not have money for food, even if if they get given, you know, a shelter or a place to live, they may not have. And so people become, you know, are risk of becoming unhoused again, because they don't have resources or access to some of the other kinds of services that they need.
I think that's the myth. Oh, isn't that like the big myth or the big elephant in the room? You know, is just that, oh, well, they're, you know, they're drug addicts and that's what they're going to do with the money, or, you know, when somebody's on the side of the road.
That's right.
I mean, that's what I used to think before I got educated, you know.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I think that's true.
Anything else, Matthew? Do you have anything you want to add? Or?
Well, thank you very much, Olivia and Sam. I mean, it's really been an excellent hour, and thank you. I think, Manoj, as Barbara said, there's a lot of ideas and things in culture and the mainstream that we need to reflect on that and to think about things from a different point of view. So I think that the whole concept of compassion is a very good one for this topic.
So I just was reminded of a very sweet story I read. Ajahn Jayasaro is a really well-known Buddhist monk in the Theravada tradition under Ajahn Chah. And I read a book he wrote about our daughters and sisters and brothers, something like that. And before he was a monk, when he went to Asia and on his way, he stopped by in Iran, in Persia. And he said that he was on the street, he didn't have any food or money or anything. He hadn't showered for a few days. And all of a sudden, this woman walks up to him. She recognizes he doesn't speak Farsi, so she's not speaking to him because, you know, the language barrier. But she points to him in a really serious manner, points to him to follow her. So he follows her, and they go through streets and up this apartment, and she shows him to go take a shower. So he goes, takes a shower. She gives him some clothing of his son or so, and feeds him, and gives him some money, and with the same gesturing, you know, points him to the door to leave. And he was so touched by this kindness, this compassion, this utter lack of judgment, and just the offering, you know, just the offering. Now, it's very difficult for any of us to think that most people, right, that I would, you know, invite somebody who's homeless to my home, go take a shower in my shower, right? It's just really difficult to even imagine. But different cultures around the world have different depths with compassion, right? And compassion being a movement, the movement of the heart to relieve suffering. And this is really something we could cultivate and understand. Compassion is not to suffer for. It's actually a movement of the heart to relieve the suffering with equanimity, with a sense of peacefulness and knowing what's the right thing to do. And if one has the, you know, the resources, and this is like, it's kind of like an insight that this is what I can do, and it's spontaneous, and you know, you do it. So part of it also is for us to allow our heart to show up and to rise, to not suppress the heart of compassion, right? Of course, with all kinds of safety mechanisms, but always thinking about safety, right? Maybe a lot of it is not even necessary. Maybe just being human to human. We're not dealing with wolves, you know, lions. We're dealing with another human being, and it's possible that we can actually extend. So I'm going to reflect on this story and see what shows up for me and how far am I willing to go, you know? So it's easy to tell others what to reflect on, but definitely I will be reflecting on this myself. And Thank you so much for both of you. And I did ask Sam, I don't know if you saw my text, to send the link to everybody, to post the link so that people can, if you did it or not, people can learn more and support in any way, because a lot of times we can't do anything, but we could support organizations who can, right? Yeah.
So you want Sam to post a link to Second Harvest?
Yes,
Okay, that'd be
yeah,
great. Yeah.
post the link to
Yeah.
yes, so they could learn more and support as they can.
That'd be
as
great.
they-
Would you
yeah.
post that in the chat, Sam?
Yeah, I'm sorry
Please.
for not responding. I was actually going to ask Olivia, do you think we should share a link to the presentation as well?
Sure. Yeah, I think we.
Okay, I can try. It's a
Yeah,
little
I'm not
difficult
sure if you
sometimes.
can. Let me see. I will look
Exactly.
and see if I can do that. And while I do that, I think Barbara also has a question.
All right, I'll
Yeah, I
share
just
it.
really, Manijay, just reminded me this summer, just real quickly, you know, I rent this house for 2 weeks with my family. You know, it's a quite expensive house in a very, you know, very expensive area on the boardwalk in New Jersey. And every morning we get up and there's this man clearly in old clothes. And every morning, like I see there, I want to feed him or I want to invite him in to take a shower. And I don't want to make him feel bad or approach him in a way where I needed to be humble. I didn't want to be intrusive. And every morning I would wake up and either he would be sleeping or he would be engaging with somebody else. And throughout these 2 weeks I was there, this man just came alive to me. And all of a sudden, as I was leaving, I'm literally driving away. And it's the first time I get him alone. And I stop and I roll my window down and I hand him a $20 bill. I said, "Here, can I just give you this?" And he says, "Oh, thank you very much. I'm going to go donate it at so-and-so." He was going to take the money and donate it somewhere. I mean, it's like we never ever know whatever I think is usually not even happening. You know, it's like we make these assumptions, and you know, I just wanted to help this man. I think he had friends. He was living his life. I don't know. It just, your story reminded me of that. I just needed to share that. Thanks again, guys.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah. This is our lives. We live off of assumptions. We have to have assumptions and then we have to check them out. You know, it's not easy to be a human. That's all I have to say.
It's not easy to be human.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. So we have the recording. I will just edit a little bit out and then post it on our YouTube channel. And you guys could please watch it again, send it to others. If you have questions, be in touch with Olivia and Sam and their organization. Imagine if in the richest place in this country, right, people become, even the chances of people becoming unhoused is even more, right, in rich places, right? That is so you know, counterintuitive, right? And then it doesn't matter rich or poor. These are people, these are human beings who are going through this unbelievable, incredible difficulty. And so if we can even imagine such a thing happening to each of us, which is very possible, you know, it's not to create fear and anxiety, but it's possible to happen to anybody because it happened to them. It happens to these people, right? And so we can be in touch and support anywhere. It doesn't matter if it's in your neighborhood or not. You could be supporting somebody in Africa, in Silicon Valley, in, you know, Southern California, in anywhere. It doesn't matter. These are humanity, which is why we are connecting each month and creating these bonds, heart bonds, mental wisdom bonds. And so please stay in touch with each other, make connections during these sessions, and stay with us. We need you. And this is also, Matthew, please give us the 3 C's to finish this the session, the effectiveness of a community.
Well, we always say belonging is 3 C's. The first one is comfort. People like to feel safe and comfortable and welcome. The second is a connection, so sharing, which we've done today. We've had good sharing and people will feel connected by being listened to. And then the last piece is contribution. So belonging comes from comfort, connection, and contribution, which is what we really try to do in Connection Hour every month.
So please make contributions in any way you can. Bring your voice in, bring your needs in. It doesn't have to be a wise thing that you're doing. You could be a need. You present, this is my need. This is the topic I really want to know about. This is what I need, where I need to grow. That's also a contribution, right? And if you need to, you can contribute to the organization perfectly here. Please feel free to do that because it's always helpful. Everything counts. Every contribution counts. So we thank you and wish you well. If you like to unmute, say goodbye, and we see each other soon again.
Thanks, everyone. Blessings on everyone.
Yeah, happy holidays.
Thank you very
you
much.
all.
We'll see you in December. Don't forget, we'll have another one in December. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're
Barbara,
welcome. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
You're
Natalia.
welcome.
Thank you.
You're
Mary.
welcome.